Can you spot the lie? Welcome to Fact or Fake. We've got 18 mind-blowing statements that will challenge everything you know about ancient Egypt. Let's begin. The Great Pyramid of Giza was primarily built by thousands of slaves forced to work under brutal conditions. Fake. Paid laborers and skilled craftsmen built the pyramids. They were housed, fed, and even given medical care. Their tombs were found near the pharaohs. Ancient Egyptian women were not allowed to own property, file for divorce, or run their own businesses. Fake. Egyptian women had legal rights similar to men, including the ability to own, buy, and inherit property. They were also entitled to up to 1/3 of assets in a divorce. The pharaoh Tutankhamun died from the infamous Curse of the Pharaohs after his tomb was opened. Fake. Modern analysis suggests King Tut likely died from a combination of malaria and bone disease. The curse was mostly sensationalized by the media. Ancient Egyptians used the reflection of water in a bowl as their first type of mirror before inventing polished bronze ones. Fake. Mirrors were actually invented in ancient Egypt, with the earliest ones made from highly polished copper or bronze. Polished bronze provided a clear reflection. To protect their eyes from the harsh sun and ward off evil spirits, both men and women in ancient Egypt wore makeup to ward off evil spirits. Fact. Coal made from galena was used by both genders for sun protection and symbolic religious reasons. They also wore green malachite eyeshadow. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh's false beard was purely a fashion statement to show off their wealth and style. Fake. The braided false beard was a symbolic item of royalty and divinity, worn to emulate the god Osiris. Queen Hatshepsut also wore one. The hieroglyphs on temple walls and tombs could only be read from right to left, like modern Arabic. Fake. Hieroglyphs could be written and read right to left to right, or vertically. You followed the direction the animals and people faced. This flexibility saved space. The ancient Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten abolished the worship of all Egyptian gods to establish a new monotheistic religion. Fact. Akhenaten decreed the sole worship of the sun disk god, Aten, moving the capital and smashing images of other gods. The change was reversed after his death. When mummifying a body, the ancient Egyptians threw away the brain because they believed the heart was the source of intelligence and emotion. Fact. The brain was carefully removed through the nose and discarded, but the heart was left inside to be weighed in the afterlife. The heart was the center of life. The ancient Egyptians were the first civilization to invent and use a calendar with exactly 365 days. Fact. They created a solar calendar based on the annual flooding of the Nile and the star Sirius, which had exactly 365 days. This calendar was highly accurate. The primary mode of long-distance transportation and trade in ancient Egypt was riding camels across the desert. Fake. Camels were not commonly used for transport until the late Egyptian period. Boats on the Nile River and donkeys were the main transport. The Nile was the primary highway. The pharaoh Ramesses II, also known as Ramesses the Great, reigned for over 90 years, making him the longest ruling pharaoh in history. Fake. Ramesses II reigned for 66 years, which is one of the longest reigns. The longest ruling pharaoh was Pepi II, who may have reigned for 94 years. Ramesses II lived into his 90s. Ancient Egyptians had specialized doctors, including dentists, which shows their advanced medical knowledge. Fact: Egyptian doctors had specific specialties, with evidence of early dentistry, bone setting, and even the use of medical papyri. They recorded many treatments. In preparation for the afterlife, all ancient Egyptians, regardless of social status, were fully mummified. Fake. Full mummification was a very costly and long process reserved mainly for the royal family and the wealthy elite. The poor were simply buried in the dry desert sand. Ancient Egyptian children typically wore no clothing until puberty, including in the royal family. Fact: Children, even in high-status families, were often left unclothed to protect them from the heat and save materials. They still wore jewelry and amulets. The massive stones used to build the Great Pyramid were quarried from thousands of miles away near the Red Sea coast. Fake. Most stones for the Great Pyramid were quarried locally in Giza, with finer limestone from Tura and granite from Aswan much closer. Local limestone was the main material. The pharaoh was the only person in ancient Egypt allowed to wear a leopard skin garment. Fake. While the king certainly wore leopard skin, it was also worn by priests during certain religious ceremonies. The garment was symbolic of power. Ancient Egyptians believed the god Thoth was responsible for overseeing mummification and guiding souls. Fake. The god Anubis, who had the head of a jackal, was the god of embalming and guided the souls through the afterlife. Thoth was the god of wisdom and writing. How many did you get right? Comment your score below. Subscribe and hit the bell for more fact or fake challenges every day.